This episode has been brought to you from the DGMS Studios, home of Don't Get Me Started, Lethal and Mully Live and Surftown. Found at Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music and wherever you listen to your podcast. Hello and welcome to Don't Get Me Started. It's the mother of all podcasts with Keith and Lee. Hi, I'm Lee.
And I'm Keith.
I'm not going to come in with the usual hello, Mully. I'm going to come in with Keith.
Oh.
Because I've been listening to you over the past weeks and you've told me a few stories in the coffee shop for one where you'd ordered a coffee and they got your name wrong. And I remember I used to have a little nickname for you called Keefy. And you said, well, I don't mind Keefy, but I'll allow you to do it. So I'm calling you by your proper name. Keith.
Oh, we're getting very formal. Mr. Denton.
How are you?
Of course I am well,
I'm happy to be here.
Yes, me too. Well,
it seems like a millennium every time we get in here.
Yes, it does. Going back to that story when that chap behind the counter mispronounced my name.
Tell the story. It's funny.
Well, he really messed it up. Well, he got off to a bad start, and I may have said this before, this little anecdote, stop me if I have, but I take umbrance when I go into a office or a shop and they say, what was your name? It's like, dude, I've still got it. And a couple of times I get a bit narky. I guess they think I'm another smart ass, And I say, look, I still have that name. So you should be asking me, what is your name? So this guy, he's behind the counter. He's serving me. He's looking all over the place. His brain, his mind somewhere else. He goes, yeah, I made the order. And he said, name. And I said, Keith. And he said, teeth. I looked at him. And in my brain, I'm thinking, dude, you're not off to a good start here. And I said, no, not teeth, Keith.
With a K.
Yeah. And of course, he's fumbling and looking dumbfounded at the screen. So I slowly spelled it for him. Keith. All right. I said, how long? He said, about 10, 15 minutes. So I came back in 10 minutes, about 10 minutes time. And of course, in Domino's Pizza, they have the screen up on the wall, in the oven, or ready, and your name is corresponding wherever the pizza's up to. So I look up there. Sure enough, my name is Cleith. Kealth. Cleith or something. And it's like...
Lee Van Cleef.
God, I looked at it, I thought, geez, mate, I know you don't have listening skills, but is there anything else happening in there?
Yeah, nothing.
But, like this happened to me in Hong Kong one time. If you ever go to Hong Kong in Central, it works its way, the suburbs work their way up the side of a hill, and you go Central, Soho, and up to the mid-levels. And it's the longest undercover escalator in the world. And it's a real landmark feature of the city. And I lived very close to it, and I used to go up and down that escalator all the time. And it would run downhill until noon, and then it would run uphill all afternoon, early or well into the evening. And often you would just stand there and you keep the right-hand side clear, and people who wanted to run quickly would go through on the right-hand side. And, of course, I just got there and I was just standing behind this lovely lady with her little son, Chinese people, and he would have been, maybe about 12. And he looks at me and he goes, hello. Because, soft-hearted, I go, hello. And he said, what's your name? And I said, Keith. And he burst out laughing and he grabbed his mum by the back of the shirt. Mummy, his name is Kiss.
I remember a coffee incident that I saw on Instagram. It was so funny. So this guy goes in, very similar to you, orders a coffee, and he goes, name? And he goes, Mark with a C. So he goes off and he comes back and he gets his coffee and he looks down and they spelt it Cark. C-A-R-K. Mark with a C. Cark. Like, come on. I've gone into coffee shops, which I love, by the way, and I've said, yeah, can I have a medium, flat white, 1 sugar, extra hot? And they go, okay, so what was it? Medium, flat white, extra hot, 1 sugar. So flat white? And I'm just going, can't you understand? I just want a flat white, medium, 1 sugar, extra hot. And they come back and they haven't put a sugar in it. It's infuriating. I'll give you another infuriating that's been happened to me. Now, you know my van gave up the ghost before Christmas. I thought I'd get a new van. And I thought, well, I'll try out Marketplace because everything is on there and there's a heap of vans. So I thought, okay, I'll have a look. And a few came up and I thought, I'll give it a go. They should really put up phone numbers so you can talk to them direct. Or when you send a message like I normally do, I say, give me a call. But they don't. They persist with messages for some reason. I don't know why. It's infuriating. So I made contact with one and he replied back saying, yep, no worries, all good. I said, great. I said, I'll take your van. How do you want payment? He goes, well, I want you to come down and have a look at the van, take it for a test drive. No worries, all good. Here's my number, give me a call. And he goes, oh, look, I'm at work at the moment. He said, but give me a call after work. I said, no worries. Sends me his number, give him a call, doesn't pick up. Give him another call, doesn't pick up. Never replied again. I thought, what's going on? Another van I applied for, again, message, sent my number. He goes, oh, look, heads up, I'm not in the country at the moment. And so alarm bells are ringing there. I said, okay, so what's happening? He goes, I've got a friend that's in the property here. He's dealing with the van. Here's his number. Great. Ring him. Doesn't reply. Sends me a text. I'm going, why can't people communicate anymore? Anyway, try to get through. No, I can't make it then. Can't make it here. I work early, work late. I just gave up. Too hard. Went to see another one. He said, oh, the exhaust is gone and I need to get that sorted. I was over it, like done. So what I did, rang a dealer, saw a van. We got it done within a day and a half. It's sitting outside now. So Marketplace, what a waste of time.
Yeah, I've heard this story, a similar story many times. People are very, very frustrated. I've only used it, currently using it at the moment, and I'm having similar experiences. First time I've ever used it. And there's a number of set replies that were there. Yeah. So people don't even have to type. They can just press a button just for the hell of it. Don't tell me, is it still available? That's the one. So you reply back yes and you don't hear anything. I've had 4 people inquire about what I'm selling and I reply back, give them the details. Nothing. And I think what people must do is they must have a look around. Say they're buying a push bike. They might say, oh, there's 6 of them there. And they say to all, press that is it available button for all 6 of them. Boom, 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 boom. And whichever one responds favourably, then they may deal with them. But I hear so many people say exactly the same story as what you're saying. And it's really interesting. You know, my wife says to me, because she's foreign, she's not Australian, she's just flabbergasted at the inefficiency of people doing their job in Australia. She's just flabbergasted. She works in early childhood education, and about 3 years ago, she applied for a job in Byron Bay. And the on-site, they had their own webpage. It looked very, very impressive. And the job that was advertised was talked up, sounded like a really good position. So she applied for it and got through to a phone call. And when she's very direct, my wife. So she put forward some very pertinent questions, which were the right ones that you would want to know before you go any further. And the information that came back was that half of what was being advertised was bogus. It was nowhere near as attractive as what they had put it out there to be.
Smoke and mirrors.
She comes from a country where people are full of straight shooters. And so she's dealing with all these different people in her work, in bureaucracy and in government departments. And she's just flabbergasted. And she continually says to me, does anybody in this country know how to do their job properly? I'll give you another example. 10 years ago, I applied for a teaching job here in Queensland. It was 10 months before the education department got back to me to tell me that I didn't get the job.
I mean, communication, communicate, talk, work it out, get to the A point and finish at the Z. And then it's a transition between the two. It's really easy. Yes and no.
Yeah.
Done.
I think another thing that happens too, Lee, is that we have so much bureaucracy in Australia and there's so many NGOs and so many agencies and all these affiliated semi-government sort of organisations that are intruding into our life. Now, they're full of bureaucrats who can't be fired and they can't lose their job because they're not elected. They're appointed. And then, of course, they want to be set up in a way that there's no government interference, which they've done. And so they've become this monster that's accountable to nobody but themselves. So they don't really have to provide an efficient service. Now, years ago, we used to complain about the public service who worked for the government or even unions. Well, the public service that worked for the government in Australia 30, 40, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, was streamlined smicko compared to these semi-government organisations that are authority unto themselves. They're so inefficient. They bloat their budgets to gouge taxpayers' money, and they sit behind desks. The useless bureaucrats who sit behind desks who come up with procedure after procedure after procedure to justify their fat, lazy asses on those cushions so that they can have that good, cushy job. And all the bureaucracy and the rules and regulations that they come up with, they inflict upon ordinary people. And it's the scourge of modern society.
Well, let me get in there, Molly, because I know you're firing.
Oh, man, they drive me nuts.
I agree with what you're saying, and even down to little things like the swimming pool regulations. I reckon somebody sits there and makes them up, makes it harder because that's their job, down to little pinpoint stuff to make it, well, an ant couldn't cross that. You couldn't get under that, but you still need to put something there because it fouls the regulations that we're putting forward. So you need to do this. It's infuriating. Even 10 years ago, it wasn't as strict as it is now. I agree with saving, like, you have to make sure your pool gate's correct and you can't crawl in because we all know, especially children, they get in and get it done. But some of them, like I've got to do now, is incredible.
Australia is really being crippled by bureaucracy, even more than some countries that we, like socialist, communist countries that we thought had been totally hamstrung by bureaucracy. A lot of those countries were efficient in their heyday when they were communist, because a lot of them aren't anymore. When they were operating in their heyday as communist countries, their bureaucracy was supposedly very heavy, very slow. And I've known and met quite a few people who've come from those countries who grew up under those regimes. And they say what they're encountering in Australia in 2024 and 2025 is worse than what it was living in Eastern Europe under those old communist countries, governments.
I'm with you.
And when nobody's doing anything about this. Like I was in one country one time, and a lot of countries are like this. You go up to the counter, you say, I'll have hamburger and a packet of chips, please. So that person serving you writes it out on a piece of paper, gives it to somebody, and they go whizzing into the kitchen, hand that to somebody in the kitchen. Next person gets a piece of paper, runs out to the kitchen, gets the ingredients, brings it back, hands it to the cook, and starts cooking. So there's been 3 transactions with 4 people involved. Pretty soon, though, I get my hamburger and chips. We're getting to a point in Australia. I know this couple wanted a birth certificate. They had to wait 7 months.
It's insane.
It was a commemorative birth certificate. They had to wait 7 months here in Australia recently.
Well, I hope they get it soon, Molly, and we have to move on.
See, mate, don't get me started on bureaucracy.
I know.
I loathe them.
I'm trying to monitor, but I've got to let you run, Molly.
Oh, I absolutely loathe them because they just suck the oxygen out of the air. And that oxygen is dollars from taxpayers, and it's time from efficient workers. And it gets worse. One more. Say, for example, you are a qualified language. I know a guy. He teaches English in Long Bay Jail in Sydney. Brilliant guy. He works with the prisoners. A lot of them got very low literacy skills. He's done his university qualification in a number of educational fields. He's working for the government, teaching and aiding these prisoners, getting them ready to be fit and in a condition to go back into society upon their release. And he's been doing this efficiently for years, working for the government as a public servant. So the government all of a sudden hires a private firm. They privatise that service that my friend was doing to so-called cut costs. So the company that now is employing my friend said, oh, now, have you done a certificate for? He goes, well, what's a certificate for? And they said, well, this is a new thing, regulation that's come in that you'll have to do. You'll have to do 20 hours of study so that you can be up with what current trends in education, society and culture are there so that you can best go in and perform your job. He goes, man, I've been doing this for 10, 12 years and I've been preparing these prisoners to go out and some of them are finding jobs, turn their lives around. Oh, no, you've got to do a certificate for. And it takes him 20 hours or more and if he doesn't do the certificate for, he gets fired. He does the certificate for, comes back into his job and the private company says to him, oh, you're certificate 4 qualified. He goes, yes, well, that's what you wanted me to do. Well, people who are qualified at university level get paid at this high level. You're now at certificate 4, which is a lower level, so you're going to be paid less.
Well, Mully,
Now,
we've come to the end of our
No, we
episode
haven't.
now. I'll leave you the last one. Far out, Mully.
Well, there's a key question in this. If he's being paid less, where has that excess money gone that he used to get? To the to the owner of that semi-government employed, useless, bureaucratic piece of chicken-run, inefficient bloody outfit. And Lee, you can laugh at me, but our society is riddled with this, riddled with it. And I kid you not. All you bureaucrats out there, go and get a real job. Look at Charles, King Charles of England. The ultimate bureaucrat, and he finally gets a job at 73 as another bureaucrat.
Good, well, he's not going to last long, I don't think, poor Charlie.
Yes. Well, sorry, Chuck, I didn't mean to speak of a guy in ill health. Please forgive me, my sovereign.
We're nearly 20 minutes into the podcast.
What were we going to
We've
talk
got
about?
10 minutes left before.
Oh, let's stretch it to 15.
So what was it, Mully? I've forgotten now. You've totally sidestepped what we were doing.
Well, I mentioned to you it would be good because to talk about this that I've come across. And it's a well-known saying, the dark night of the soul.
Right.
The soul. What's it like to experience that in your life?
Sure.
And then you, as you want to do, you pulled out your beautiful little mobile phone, you punched in AI, and it came up with a quote from Jung.
Oh, Carl Jung, yeah.
And can you remember the quote?
No, because I gave it to you. There you go.
The quote was, and the theme is darkness, but it's a little bit different emphasis, and the quote was, know the own darkness within yourself so that you will know and understand the darkness within others.
Okay. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people.
Yeah, well, let's stick with the theme of darkness. Now, there's two issues here. One where you go into darkness because you might be a good person and you just made a wrong choice, or you have darkness in you because that's part of your character.
So
Which way do you want to go?
Oh, both. So you think darkness of the soul. So we have a soul or a spirit?
Well, you could call it that's a different topic altogether, but the saying is inferring that something internal within you
In the soul.
is going through a very bleak period.
Well, for me, when you first suggested that, it flooded me with past memories and situations and how I deal with that's been presented to me. And the way that I look at it, or I've had to embrace it, is transition. It was an awake of being in that arena. And for me, it was like it was a call to shed the condition of self that no longer served me because I was in that arena. I think the long and short of it for me was just basically to make way for a new, more aligned way of being who I was. If you get into these areas, which a lot of people do, and a lot of people are there and they don't even acknowledge or understand that they're there because they're feeling the lack of energy, or they're sad, melancholy, they're detached from daily lives. They find lost without a goal. And for me, which is most important, which I got through it all, is that if I just couldn't project myself into the future because it kept me there. It wanted to whisper in my ear. I had to overcome it. I remember reading an article a long time ago about Nelson Mandela and how he got through his 27 years in prison and how he kept his vision through that to deal with the dark, because it's there. It's just round the corner. And whether it's initiated by a tragedy, a breakup, a marriage, an illness, it's gonna talk to you. It's going to take, and we spoke about meditation before, and that helped me through that period of time.
There's a lot to unwrap there in what you said. You said you can go into darkness because of a breakdown of a relationship or something bad.
An illness, a death.
You can also get into that condition because, and I think this would be just as hard, by making a foolish decision in your life and you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. I just heard of a friend recently, or an acquaintance more than a friend, good guy though, who through a foolish, reckless business decision lost $400,000 and then ultimately the home that he owned was left with virtually nothing.
But how many times have we heard this story? A pyramid system.
I don't know what it was, Ali. But
no, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
People that waste their money because they're thinking of a get-rich-quick scheme.
Oh, look, the rule of thumb here is if it's sounds too good to be true, then it is.
It is.
Stay away from it.
How many people do you know that have got rich quick? Mully,
none.
I've got this formula. Come in with me.
Oh, I've had that twice.
I've had people come to me with different ways of doing it. One was, if you can invest $20,000 with me, we can buy grain to do this, this and this, and then we can sell it off for that, that and that. Then I heard later on that, the transportation of grain was hijacked by bandits and it's all gone.
Well, I've got a good one for you. A friend of mine said I should invest in cattle. So I bought one. It cost $300. And he sold it, I do not know how many months later, but I doubled my money. I got $600 back in the hand. How's that?
Well done. That's a success story.
Aren't I a sparkling entrepreneur?
You're incredible, mate. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to be on your team.
I'm a cattle baron.
What I'm trying to put forward is that I think you should not welcome it initially at first, but I think you should embrace it and let it be what it wants to be. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in that grip, but you're going to be taken there because we're only human.
Yeah, and it's very hard apparently to get out of that grip. And as you said, you couldn't see the way ahead. You couldn't see the future.
I couldn't see the future. And for me, not then, but now, because tragedy does strike in your life, and I had a moment with passing of my son, and meditation helped me. Also, sleep helped me to rest and to struggle. And I had to nourish my body and my mind. And most importantly, I had to seek knowledge of all that. And that's what you should be doing if you're in it and don't know how to get out of it. I'm old school where I wasn't taught how to do things. I had to learn. I had to go to a library to get a book to learn how to make something. Or I had to ask somebody, how do you do this? And of course, I wasn't asking anybody, and I struggled through and thankfully got out the end in the early times where I went through, because life comes at you at a million miles an hour. And I said to my children, they're growing up, I said, I can tell you how to do things and I can show you how to do things, but life's going to come up and it's going to bite you on the ass. You'll know. And they have. And each and every one of them, their path, they've been in there. And I think what Jung was saying is that it's good to embrace it, get out of it, so you can see it in others and maybe you can help others.
Yeah, well, apparently if you go into a very dark hole, it's extremely hard to get out. And that's often leading to depression. Now, I haven't quite been in a hole where I can't see my way out of. I've had some pretty dark times in my life. I've always kept going. I've always thought that there's something the other side of that that's better even than what I had before I went into that period of dark. So I always had something to aim at, to reach for, keep moving ahead. It's like that old saying, if you're going through hell, keep going, because you will get to the other side. I think if you can't see the other side or the future, like you said, that's when the darkness comes upon you very, very badly. And I often wonder, why is it sometimes that we are in a position where we're having where we're going through a situation in my life. I had a very good friend recently. He was going through a very, very bad period. He was a guy who had a lot going for him in his life. And I love him dearly. And I said, man, there's a line. Please look at what you have got. Don't look at what you don't have. Now, he's since come around into a much brighter place, which I'm thrilled about. Now, I don't know whether the words that I said to him helped him or not. I may be oversimplifying it, but I think sometimes, Lee, we can be our own worst enemies by looking at what we don't have because we think we should have something, because we are some sort of person. We've got a certain esteem or an image of ourselves. And if we don't have what we think we should have, then we can be depressed and sad about it.
Yeah, I think these people, whoever they are, that go further and unfortunately end their lives, whether they embrace alcohol or drugs to help them through, they feel that that's a crutch. For me, it was an extremely difficult and painful period in my life with my son. But I think, what I believe is a kind of initiation for that predicament that comes up. I think it takes you from one phase of your life to another. When I think of my son, I feel that I have transitioned one phase of my life to another, because it's the acceptance of that person not being here. It was incredibly painful. Still is, but I manage it. And I didn't want to listen to what was being said. It's through the darkness of that I was in. I didn't want to waste my time with that. I wanted to celebrate who he was and who I was and have a sense of worth. And I had to keep my vision of him. And that was hard. That was tough, because you hear a lot of people saying, I can't even see their faces anymore. And so that was my most difficult, painful time. And it took a lot to get out of it. But I think I transitioned into a different phase. I hope that you're enjoying the podcasts and the content that we're bringing to you each week. I want to take a moment to invite you to support the show. Your contributions help us continue creating high-quality episodes, bringing in exciting guests and exploring the topics you love. Every bit helps, whether it's a small donation or signing up for our Patreon account. By supporting us, you're not just helping keeping the lights on, you're becoming part of our community and helping us grow. To show our appreciation, we offer exclusive perks, behind-the-scenes content, and so much more for our supporters. So if you love what we do and you want to see us thrive, please consider signing up at buzzsprout.com/don't get me started. Support the show. Thank you for being part of our journey, and let's keep the conversation going.
Well, that's really interesting, Lee, and pretty brave of you to share that story. I'm sure that there's pain and that's something that you'll always have. So thanks for sharing that. But what you said before it was it's some sort of initiation. I thought, and I was thinking as I was listening to you, I wonder when we go through the dark nights that affect our soul, if we can look to see what we can learn out of it, or if we can see that there's something in there that's good for us that we would not have found anywhere else, then that is the initiation perhaps, so that when we come out, we've actually grown. Because sometimes when you go through a situation or you're in a position that could be not just an experience very briefly, but something that could go on for months, even years in your life, you will start to see things that because you're exposed to something you didn't choose to be exposed to. Because we like to be in control of our lives and have the quality of life that we think we are worthy of. But if we're not getting that, then it's good for us to look around, I think, to see, well, what's here that I would not have seen otherwise? What can I learn that I wouldn't have learned otherwise?
Not only me, but me and my wife were very stressed. We were both confused and we had a deep sense of loss. And that was so debilitating for us. And I've been, like you, many times in that arena. And because that's what I look at it as an arena. You go in there, it's like a gladiator. You have to fight your way out. The only other advice I can give is, to let the darkness talk, and you can use its tone as an advantage to who you are, to move forward. Because if you don't move forward, you're gone. Like you said, when you pass through hell, keep going.
Yeah, because eventually you should come out of it, and you'll probably come out of it stronger, and also picked up some things that you going to serve you in the future. I can speak personally on this. I put myself in a good few years back. I put myself in a situation that I thought was going to be very good for me, but it wasn't. It was a wrong move. And what I discovered when I was there was something that I would never have come across before. And it took me a while to realize what I had actually been given while I was in there. And it's just developed and developed and developed. And I think it's actually shaped me to be the type of man that I am.
Well, it's like I said, I don't use the words if, buts and maybes and shoulda, woulda, couldas. I don't agree with them. They're a waste of time. They should be thrown out because, I wish I should have done it, would have done. Doesn't matter. Actually being switched on and knowing where you are, it helps. I think it does. I think what was the term? If you don't look too long in the abyss, because the abyss gaze in you. Now, that's the case. A lot of people, I'm guessing, and I'm sure there has been, they like staying in that arena. They don't mind that. It's easier to tear things down than to build things up. And they've given up. Their vision's gone.
When I was at university, I did my major in my arts degree was literature, and I had to study poetry, and I came across the poetry of Sylvia Plath, and she celebrated with the feminists. I found her poetry to be stark, very, very astute, like pulling the soul of a person apart and describing it in great explicit detail
dissecting it
to the degree that the exactness of what she was talking about was beautiful. So I could see the appeal in this, but it seemed to me that she was a woman who looked over the abyss, as you mentioned, and that she loved what she saw over there. I think that she had a tragic life before she grew into adulthood and had an unfortunate marriage, I understand, and she took her own life. So there's more to it than using casual words. Some people do look too long into the abyss. Now, it's easy for me, because I've never been to the abyss, to look down into, because my past hasn't been probably as traumatic as what hers, to me, it seems to have been. So it's easy for me to say, don't go there and look. Look for the silver lining. Look for the future. Look for where you're going to come out.
And like you, I've known people, like I said last time, they're beautiful people, but their lives have been tragic, and they get through, and I can't help but admire them and love them for it. And could you imagine having stressful, most awful time of your life, and you turn to alcohol or you turn to a drug, and then trying to work yourself out, and the mind is then frazzled with that? It would be like an insane asylum.
Oh, well, it is, because what you're doing by turning to excessive indulgences like that is to smother the pain or the memory. That makes it easier to cope with the pain or the memory. The best way to deal with the pain or the memory, whatever it is that's tormenting you, is to go and get help so you can rip the thing out of your life. Don't smother it with it. Excessive alcohol and drugs is a Band-Aid. And so you've got the trauma, pain, the memory, whatever it is that's destroying your inside, and you're trying to deal with it by putting a Band-Aid over it, which is also, if you indulge in it, toxic. So you've got this unresolved, terrible thing deep within your psyche, your very being, and you're smothering something that ultimately is toxic, and it's a recipe for disaster. Now, I know it's easy to say, but if you have those big problems, go and get help.
I was going to mention is that there's a lot of help out there now. You can seek help. It's not like it was even 10 years ago where they wouldn't look down at you and said, oh, you need to sort yourself out. It's more understood now. It's more embraced. So I would seek help. Meditation helped me a lot. Now, we had a podcast before about meditation, and I would encourage people just to have 5 minutes alone with yourself to get that in, or alternatively, go back to nature. That's another thing that I did. I walked in nature, barefoot to the ground. I listened to it. It grounded me literally to the earth. It may, to a lot of people, sound new agey, and it would have to me, but it did work. It's like they say, when you have a long flight, get home, take your shoes off and scrunch up your toes into the carpet. It just makes it feel nice. And the other thing, which is more than I could ever have thought would help me, was nourish your body. Eat the right stuff. And not only for your body, but for your mind. It's a lot of work, or it may seem a lot of work, but it isn't. And it helps. And you can move forward. If you have a vision you want to project into the future, please do it.
Yeah, somebody said to me a long time ago, wouldn't it be terrible to get to the end of your life and to realise that you were the person who stopped yourself living your fulfilled best life? And I've never forgotten that. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy. We don't make the right decision. Or even when we've made the wrong decisions and we realise it, we don't have the courage or the gumption to say, that's it, and turn 180 degrees and just go the complete opposite direction. Walk around, walk away from it. Sometimes we just can't do it.
Sometimes I should have done that for sure, but I'm learning. I remember reading something about Hugh Hefner, and it said, there's no fool like an old fool.
They said that about him?
About Hugh. Because
he would be laughing all the way to the bedroom and then the bank.
Laughing all the way to take that little blue Viagra, I think.
Yeah, well, he wouldn't care what they said about him. Jeez.
And there's no fool like an old fool. And for me, that stayed in my mind, not just about Hugh, but about me, because we're all getting that little bit older. We should be a little bit wise.
Well, you can say what you like about Hugh, and there would be a divided opinion. Some would just think, oh, what a clever dude, he lived the dream, and then others will say blah, blah, blah. But what I don't like about him was his sense of fashion. What was it with that cheap sailor's captain hat he used to wear all the time?
Well, what about the pyjamas and the slippers?
Well, that's an obvious sign of where he spends most of his time.
And the pipe.
Yeah, well, again, him sitting there by the fire in his slippers with the pipe and all his little obedient little, I don't know what word, how I could describe them without getting into trouble.
And his scrapbooking and his old movie.
But they all willingly went there. Don't know what you'd call those participants, but none of them apparently had a gun at their head.
No, we're getting off track here. As I'm saying that, I think, Mully, we have to come to the end of this, because some little birdie went off at the beginning of the podcast.
Bureaucrats. And I'll finish in this.
Hold on, Mully, I'll leave you the last word.
Yeah, and I'm going to really ram it home this time, because as angry as I am with bureaucrats, this is what's wrong with governments in Western countries. Governments in Western countries have given too much of their work to so-called private enterprise. They privatise. And all these privatisation firms lead into exploiting taxpayers' dollars, paying their CEOs incredible millions per year, and also giving spawn to all these bureaucratic semi-government organisations. So the governments are just as much to blame as anybody else in all of this, because they've just sold out. And, you can vote for this side, you can vote for that side, and you can vote for this side. And they all do the same thing. And somebody said to me one time, you used to belong to a political party, Keith, what's the difference between that and the other one? And I said, well, my lot will ruin you a lot slower than the other lot. That's true.
Come on, Molly, think of my editing time.
All right, Lee, listen, we did get a bit off track today and rambled a little bit, but as usual, it's been great to sit down behind the microphones in our lovely studio. Oh, big shout out to Danny in Athens. Mate, we got your message. Yes, only 6, but soon it's going to be an underground cult hit. When it gets to 60, I'll let you know, and then 600, I'll let you know, and 6,000, I'll inform you as well. So good on you, mate. Thanks for your message. We appreciated that. To all you other folk out there, keep your messages coming in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. So until next time, it's hooroo from me.
And it's goodbye from me.